Hey, everybody. How do you like that smooth music in the background?
In the flow. I love it.
All right, well, let's shut that off and we'll kind of let people gather. It's so funny. We were talking yesterday, Caroline, about how nice it was here in the Midwest. It was
Mhm,
70,
mhm,
and
mhm. And
today
then I woke up and it was all over. It was taken away
it was,
like
yep.
that. Oh, yeah. What are you gonna do?
I know. So, if you're joining in, Caroline and I are in the Midwest. I'm in Milwaukee, and she's in Chicagoland area, right? Am I right
Yep,
about that?
yep.
And if you're joining us and you feel like it, we'd love to hear where you're from. You can just drop that in the comments, and we'll see where people are gathering tonight. I have been really looking forward to this program over the last couple of weeks because it's amazing how much writing there is in a photo collection. And I think it's really a relevant topic. So I don't know. We'll give it a little bit. Oh, Karen's here from Ohio. Hi, Karen.
Midwest again. I
A
love it.
Midwesterner, yep, I don't know how cold it got over by you, but, I think it was like 18 degrees this morning, and it was 70 last night.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. Karen, I know, has a lot of, historical items saved as well as writings along with photos, so it's nice to see you here tonight. So, all right. Well, I think just to keep on track, on schedule, we'll go ahead and get started. And then this obviously is being recorded so people can catch it again if they miss some of it. First of all, welcome everybody to Inscribed Memories, Saving Family Historical Writings. And I am really excited to be here tonight with Caroline Guntur, who is a colleague of mine, and she's definitely helped us with some of our client family research. And but Caroline, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Molly, for having me. And I've been looking forward to this too. We did our last one and we had some tech issues, and this time it's going better already. So I'm excited to be here. Um, but yeah, I'm Caroline and I'm currently in Chicago. And I've been basically a professional organizer for well over a decade now. And obviously, family history is a big passion of mine. So that is one of the areas that I've specialized. And it's been so fun to see all of the different projects that people have been working on, and all the different ways that people are sort of working with their family history. And yeah, so it's just it's always fun to hear and always fun to work with that type of memorabilia. It's the stuff that matters, as you know, Molly.
Hmm.
It's the stuff that we actually care about, not just the stuff, you know?
Mhm, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I see that we've had a couple other people join, and I'll just say hi to Rosie from Milwaukee. It's nice to have another fellow Midwesterner and my sister join in as well. All right. Caroline, thank you so much for being here tonight. I think we're going to really have a fun time. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mollie Bartelt. I own Pixology, and we help people save their photos in a photo estate so that the memories can be enjoyed and shared today, passed on to future generations. The idea for this class or this topic tonight really came about because I had the opportunity to be in not an exhibit, but I was a presenter at the Jewish Museum Milwaukee last month, and their exhibit was about the book smugglers. And these are the Jewish people who saved many, many books and other writings from the Nazis and at great risk to their lives.
Mm.
I really was moved by the presentation And part my role was to talk about saving the writing in our family photo collections. And I thought, oh, this would be great to talk about together with you. So, why do we think saving family writing is important? I just wanted to set the stage for this because the family writing really connects us with our families and the people from the past in a different way. We're seeing, especially the handwritten items that we have, are just like precious. It's just like touching the past and being connected with someone in a different way to read that.
Mhm.
I don't know. Carolyn, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much you can uh, like extract from handwriting. Not only do you get the narrative and the context, but you can see how a person thought. You can see maybe what the person's personality was and the way they wrote things, and you just get so much more context out of it. And of course, we know that the photo's half the story, the writing is the other half. We really want both to
Mhm.
get the whole picture.
No pun intended there, right?
I'm good at those.
That is very fun. So, in our agenda this evening, we're going to talk about the types of writing that you might find in your photo collections or even your boxes of memorabilia. We'll also talk about how to incorporate writing into storytelling. And we're going to share tips for preserving the writing, as well as how project based organizing can help. We'll have an example and some questions. And if you're trying to follow the agenda, well, we mix things up a little bit. So at least you know kind of what's coming in general. All right. The types of writing you might find in old family collections. We've seen a lot of different things here at Pixology, and I'm just sharing a couple examples with you. On the left-hand side, we have a baby book with pictures from like the 1920s. And this is great because you have the great grandmother's handwriting as a parent, and there's information in there about the address and a lot of details in there that are very cool to capture. And then on the right-hand side is just a photocopy of a picture that has handwriting on it. And the handwriting, is related to great grandpa Lytell, and that's probably a sixth generation relative there to the people who are living today. And such fantastic information on there. Next, we have just a simple restoration, and this was a woman who brought this in. This was a picture of her uncle, and he had given it to her. I think it's possible this is the only handwriting that she had from him, and what a meaningful, photo to have with the handwriting on there. Men and their handwriting aren't always that great, and this is really a cool one. So here are some examples of other types of writing. There's certificates, there's warranty deeds. There's actually a booklet in there from the Racine Children's Theater with stories in there. Those are a couple other examples. This is near and dear to my heart. My grandmother had one of these old, lovely scrapbooks in really good condition, and I had seen the picture of her with her friends on the bottom left there. That was a there was a photo, or excuse me, a duplicate of it loose in her pictures, and I was like, "Oh, what are they doing there?" I had no idea. And when my cousin passed this along, I saw that she had written Supercharger Workers. So this is like, it's not Rosie the Riveter, but it's like Milwaukee's version of female war workers. And I was so amazed to find that. And that handwriting is like priceless to me. Then some other types of writing that we find often in mixed in with the boxes are family histories and genealogy, things like that. This was like a 20-page document that has so much information in it, and it's printed on one of those inkjet printers like 20 years ago, but it's still valuable. Here's, another type of old scrapbook with handwriting in there. At the top, it says something like Mrs. H. Ostrowski, the date, Astor Hotel, and alumni banquet. You wonder what alumni banquet, what was that part of? And that page probably has more information on there. And here's letters and postcards and even a gift card in there. If you notice in the middle of that gift card, there is a gold coin, and we found that in another collection. And the gold coin was like worth $250. The information that was written on there, it's a note from a grandmother to a granddaughter, and I think it's dated like 1930 something. It's very cool too. Sometimes people wanna save the writing from calendars, and, this particular one on the left-hand side, our client's dad, did business in Japan and China, and to have the foreign handwriting in there, it was just like evidence of the work that he did in a different country, and that was kinda cool. Here we have, a diary, a handwritten diary from 1853, and these are individual pages that describe life, back in that day, and it's an entirely different world for sure. And then the last example that I have, I think, is this pages from a printed book. This is actually a family history book that was made in like 1978, 1980, something like that. And they had 20 or 30 copies made and passed around. Some of these pictures no longer are around. And the stories that are in the book, were written from the heart of, our client's grandfather. And that's priceless as well. So, how do you make sure that you preserve the writing? Well, there's obviously a lot of different ways you can go on this. And I think that's the crazy part about what we do is if there is 5 different ways to do something, there's probably even more. So, I'll just share with you a couple thoughts. First, how do you preserve the writing, like, the physical writing? You can take photos of it. I definitely have seen people do that. You can scan the pages that have the writing on them. You could scan them as a JPEG, if you wanna use it as a graphic. If you have a document that has more than one page, it sometimes is handy to scan things as a PDF, depending on how you're gonna use it. And, for some of the pieces that you have, if they're handwritten, you might transcribe them, type the words into a document, and Caroline knows sometimes you have to translate the writing.
Mhm.
You've
Yeah.
translated a few things for us, for
Yeah,
sure.
quite a few things, yeah.
Mhm. And then you could store the writing in archival boxes or, protective sheets and actually save the physical writing. The information that's in the writing, there's ways to save that. You can add comments or descriptions to the digital photos. That is working with the metadata. You can type the information into a Word document. You can convert your scanned PDF to be editable and searchable. You could add the details to a photo book, um, or or you could upload to a cloud storage site for sharing. So I have a few examples of this to kind of, make it come to life. When you have writing on the backs of photos, you can just simply scan the front and the back of the photo, and it's great to have the picture. And then we have two types of handwriting on here. I guess two people who hand wrote on the back of this photo, and that's kind of cool. Some people transcribe those notes to the photo's metadata, and some people just keep the backside of the picture. So that's one way. And then sometimes you come across the writing in the photo albums. And I'm going to say this example on the right hand is a worst case scenario because not only do you have the picture saved in a sticky album,
Mhm.
the handwriting is on the plastic over
Oh
the
boy.
pictures. So that was really challenging. We actually will take photos of all the pages of albums, especially if there's writing, so that we can refer back to it, in case that gets separated. You could scan the full page. It would be harder in this case with it being a plastic overlay. You could take the photos off the page for safer storage, and then you could rewrite the caption on a Post-it note or on the back of the photo possibly, and then later add that information digitally to the picture. So there's one example. When you have handwritten documents, there's a couple ways to go here too. You could scan the single pages as JPEGs, and this example here is that diary from 1853. Caroline, guess how many pages this had? This diary.
Hmm.
see, see if anyone wants to throw a guess out as to how many pages this diary had.
Probably quite a lot.
250
Yeah.
or so. It went on
So
for
big.
like 10 years.
Wow.
It was amazing. And what we're looking at here is not even the original page. It's a photocopy that was done who knows when, and then that photocopy ended up having damage to it too. Anyway, you who wants to when you're dealing with a fragile document like this, we did scan every single page on a flatbed scanner, and then we saved them as JPEGs to capture. Whoops, to capture. I'm sorry. That's my husband calling, probably wondering where dinner is. Anyway, we scan this as we scan it as JPEGs. When you scan a document as a JPEG, you really capture the color and kind of the character of the page better than scanning something as a PDF. So we ended up scanning these, as JPEGs and converting it to a PDF document. Sometimes you could just scan the pages right as a PDF. The other option with this one is to transcribe it to a Word document and then save your Word document as a PDF. So let me just show you. This is a little harder to see. I'm going to make it bigger. And on the left-hand side is an example of a diary that was transcribed, into a typewritten document. And I'm hoping you can see at the top that it says a scanned document has been identified. Scan an OCR tool can turn the scans or images into editable PDFs. This is Adobe Acrobat. And it's not the diary that I just showed you. It was another diary in the family that was written in 1896. In this case, we don't have the original diary. We just had the typewritten transcribed version. On the right-hand side, and I know our faces are kind of covering a little bit, but you can see 4 over 249. Because this document is a PDF, it's just one file that has all 249 pages in it. And that's really convenient for sharing with people. So that was just kind of a little bit of an explanation of how, when you have a multi-page document that you could scan it as a PDF, it's easier to share. And I'll go back, if you wanted to use this page in um, a book, whether it's a photo book or a family history book, you would need it to be as a JPEG in most cases. So there's some uses that you kind of have to think about in determining how you want to have it be scanned. Then once you're done with the work of the preserving the information and the writings, if you're going to save it, you might want to get an archival box. And we order boxes, and the protective sleeves from Archival Methods is a place that we use often when we are wanting to save something. Here's an example of those photos, not those photos, some other photos that are in a photo book, and the information is typed on the page, so that people can read the photo book and read the captions and learn more. So this information, this written information was put onto the pages. And photo books are really nice, as well as any produced book, because you can have multiple copies and share those with the rest of the family. You also might want to upload your photos and your writings to a cloud storage site. We recommend our clients use Forever, which allows you to have photos, videos, as well as PDF documents. So here you're kind of seeing a whole variety of documents that are in there, and some things that are pictures. There's some items that say PDF, and there's some items that are just JPEGs that have the writing on them. And that's nice for sharing. And in Forever's case, they will migrate your pictures and video and documents to the newest technology for your lifetime plus 100 years. Another way that we've seen people use writings is to actually consolidate them. And, this gentleman, Eric, we had a really fun time, during the pandemic. He's actually a physician, an orthopedic physician, and of course, when the pandemic hit, he had time to work on this, which was fortunate in one respect. I don't know if that was right to say, but anyway, his, father had started a book. His grandfather had, started a book on his baseball days. His grandfather was a baseball player in the Great Depression, and he went from oil company to oil company playing on their baseball teams and managing them. It was really interesting. So there was that, and then his grandmother also had writings. So we ended up consolidating 3 different pieces of, writing into one family history book that was, I think, close to 300 pages, and that was a pretty neat project as well. You might be, you know, overwhelmed. All of the things that I've shared, there's so many things to think about when preserving family photos and then the writings and all of that, and I thought this would be a good time for Caroline to share a little bit about her work with project-based organizing. So I think, yep, it's your turn, Caroline.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, there's always so much, and that's sort of the fun part of family history, but also kind of the the difficult part of it is like when you start to look for things, they tend to pile up. And fortunately, that's a good thing. We do prefer it when you have a lot of things. It's worse when you have nothing, and that's really, that can be difficult as well. But when you have a lot, just be grateful for that. Be happy about that, because we can always just be selective about what we use. But we really prefer it when there's a lot to choose from. So I teach two different methods of organizing photos: a pro method and a PBO, a project-based organizing method. And I just thought I would share a little bit about the PBO method for those of you who are DIYers and those of you who are really, interested in doing some of this on your own. So, Molly, if you could maybe hop to the next slide for me. Yeah, perfect. So the first thing we need to think about is what we refer to in the industry as the ABCs of photo organizing. And that is really looking at your photo collection in terms of what goes in an album, what goes in a box, and what goes in the trash can, basically. So the A photos, the A stands for albums. Those are the best photos, the best of the best. And they're the ones that tell your family story. They're the ones that you want to save and pass on. And they're usually maybe 10 to 20% or so of your photo collection, maybe 30 at most, but really not more than that. And then we have this huge sort of in between of B photos. or box photos. Those are the photos that are good, but maybe not the ones that you would put on the cover of a book or, print for your wall or anything like that. So they might not be the best photos that you have, but they're still good and they would be fun to keep. And just a nice average normal photo would be a B photo. And then we have the C photos, and the C stands for can. So those are the photos that we can trash. And they don't tell a story and they don't need to be passed on. So people often ask me, like, well, what's a good example of that? Well, perhaps if you went to a beautiful beach and you took 40 photos of the exact same view, we can keep one or two of those perhaps, but we don't need all 40. So those would be an example, and we can declutter a little bit and get rid of some of those so that the ones that we really care about stand out more. So think about your photo collection in terms of A, B, and C photos, and that's of course from the photo managers that we know of that concept. It's really a great way for beginners to think about it, just of like, what would you like to display? What would you like to keep in a box somewhere for safekeeping? And then what can we get rid of? So let's head to the next slide. PBO is based around this concept, right? So this is a way to tackle your photo collection at a much slower pace and in smaller chunks than traditional organizing. And when I say traditional, I mean professional organizing. Basically, it means that you are being very, very selective around what you keep, and we focus on those A photos. So usually, when we talk about PBO, we're talking maybe 5,000 photos or less. Um, Keeping those instead of a much larger quantity is what we want to do. So in professional organizing, when us as professionals organize photo collections, we're often dealing with 50, 100,000, 200,000 photos or more, sometimes up to a million. I mean, I've seen collections that were well over a million. And that can be really overwhelming to organize. So we really have to be very diligent and efficient around how we do that. PBO can get um, a little bit easier because then we're looking at just the A photos, which is 10, 20, maybe 30% at most of those photos, and we focus on those. So it's really a great approach for minimalists or for DIYers or for people who feel very overwhelmed by the process. It really puts the spotlight on the ones that we want to keep. It lessens the learning curve and it just gets you through some things at a slower pace. But it is uh, a very selective way of approaching your photo collection. So let's go to the next slide again. And I just thought I would contrast it for you with the traditional approach. So if you are a professional organizer or a professional photo manager, or just a pro in general who works with a lot of memorabilia and photos, what we have to do, because we are in business, is really optimize the process. So if I have to organize a million photos or even 100,000 or 200,000 photos, I have to be efficient, I have to be fast, and I have to do everything at once. I have to batch process. That's what we call that. That works really great for somebody who is a pro because you have enough time dedicated to the project. You have funds because you're getting paid for it, and you have the expertise because you're in the business, in the industry, so you know the best practices, right? And it's really necessary for business owners because we need to service as many clients as possible. We don't have time to go at a slower pace. So the ultimate goal is really to deliver an organized collection, right? Our job is basically to give something back that makes sense for the client. And that is what we call the pro approach. So we really optimize the process for speed, for efficiency, for fast delivery. The PBO approach, it's much different. It optimizes the process for creativity and focuses on those A photos to get those shared and preserved first. So basically, what you do is you say, okay, what project do I want to create? And then let's select a few photos for that project and focus on organizing those as a byproduct. So basically, you curate media specifically for projects, and then you maybe let go of things that you don't need at the end. And that really works really well for DIYers because they're not running a business. They're not focusing on multiple photo collections at once. The ultimate goal is to preserve those really great stories and to tell those stories and to preserve the writing, as Molly showed in some of those examples earlier, right? And what I want to mention is that the PBO process can still be really efficient, right? It's just it's a different way of approaching it. It's approaching it from a project standpoint versus from an organization standpoint, because organization is sort of a means to an end, right? We do that in order to get the client to be able to do something with their photos. But if you are your own, your own client basically, or if you're working on, even just your family members' photo collections, or just doing smaller projects, it can be really overwhelming to tackle so many photos at once. So we really want to make sure that it breaks it down into a step-by-step approach. Do I have any more slides? Yes, I do. Okay. I was like forgetting what I was going to say. So let me just break down a few things, because I can understand that if you're not maybe familiar with the pro approach, like it might be difficult to understand what the difference is. But think of the pro method as a system versus the PBO method as just sort of a method of way of getting to an end. So for the pro method, we're usually talking about people who are doing this for professional reasons or as a professional business. We usually have multiple clients. We need to maximize efficiency and speed. We have extensive training already. And the reason I put sous chefs needed here is because I mean contractors every now and then. Because what I often do is liken this to a restaurant scenario, right? So if you are going to open a business and be a professional, you basically need to be able to service as many clients as possible. And every now and then you're going to need help. So you basically need helpers, right? And also in a restaurant, you might need servers, right? You might just not be able to do everything by yourself. And I kind of liken the PBO method to cooking for yourself or your family, right? That's what you do if you're a DIYer. If you were to drop me, who is not a really good cook, by the way, in a restaurant, I would be completely overwhelmed because of the speed, because of the accuracy that you need, because of the turnaround and the efficiency that you need in a scenario like that. It's very hard to get into that type of a situation and know what to do if you have no experience. And so that's why I say the PBO method is more like cooking for yourself. You're getting used to it. You're understanding the basics, the principles, and that takes it at a slower pace. There's less overwhelm, and you can do it at with a longer timeline. And then those small wins that you get sort of sustains your motivation. And yes, you may hire a contractor or two, maybe somebody to scan some photos if that's a big of a learning curve for you. But the real outcome is storytelling, and you get to choose what photos you're working with. So it's really just a very nice way for DIYers to take it slow and to learn a little bit more. Yeah. So I know it's a lot to take in. It's a lot of information, right? But basically in the pro organization, the steps are consolidation, deduplication, organization, and that's usually what a pro does for you. And then we hand it back to the client, and usually then they do their own curation and creation. Maybe they make photo books or do some other project with it at the end. In the PBO method, because you're doing everything yourself, we always consolidate first, but then you go directly to curation and creation. And then based on those photos, you then deduplicate and then organize at the very end. And it becomes like a byproduct of the project. So the project is actually the outcome. And that's what professional production houses do. Like if Disney were going to go and, make a movie, they have a specific intent. They don't just go taking pictures and shooting film for no reason. There's a specific project in mind that they're creating, right? And so that's kind of what you're doing, is you're making a specific dish, if you call it that, and you're creating the ingredients for it, rather than just collecting ingredients with no specific outcome. That's kind of what that's about. So those are the two methods I teach, and I find that the pro organizers obviously want to learn the efficient way of doing things. They batch everything and all of that, and that's all great. But if you're a DIYer, just know that there's another way to do this. And that's where we see the PBO method coming in and focusing on those projects and those A photos. So it's easier and less overwhelming, I should say.
That's really cool. I can, a lot of our photo estate projects for clients involve saving tens of thousands of photos. And, I think that we do a really good job of providing a summary, but there's a lot there. And you're just so amazed at the final organization that creating something from it becomes a lower priority sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, um, I
Well,
Yeah,
can I just mention that?
yeah.
That because what happens is that the learning curve sometimes for organizing the photos can be so big that
Mhm,
people just spend so much time learning. I
mhm.
mean, I'm talking years, just learning how to organize photos, but then they're so exhausted by the time they're done learning, if they ever get done learning, that, they don't actually get to the doing. And
Yep.
they're like, you know what, I can't do any more right now. So that's why sometimes let's just do the fun part first and then, do the organization as a byproduct. So yeah, here's another a slide about why I feel PBO is the best alternative. I teach it a lot because like I said, it helps lessen the overwhelm. You get quicker wins. There's shorter timelines involved. It's much more focused and specific than just organizing your whole life at once.
Mhm,
And again, most of my clients that I work with and coach, they're not professionals. They're not interested in becoming professionals. Some are, but not everybody. They're very creative and they want to do the fun stuff. And when you have small wins and when it's fun and motivating, then you actually take more action. You do it more regularly because it's not so scary. And then that motivation actually leads to more and more things happening, which leads to more stories shared. And that's really the end goal, right? And it also promotes better intentional photo taking habits, which is an additional bonus because you start to think about when you're taking a photo, you're like, I wonder what I'm going to use that for. So when you're at that beach and you're like, you know what, I don't need to click 40 photos. Maybe, for fun every now and then, but you just start deleting as you go because you learn, like, oh, actually, I just need a few.
mhm.
So it really is quality over quantity for a lot of this, and presentation. That we focus on a lot.
Very cool. That's, really interesting, and I'm so glad that you were willing to share that. I think, it's definitely has me thinking a little bit. We we do some project-based work, and I know, some of our clients work on individual projects. This is just, after hearing you kinda talk about that, I was thinking, "Okay, have we done that?" And I found this, amazing World War II book, that Frank wrote, and he lets us share this. He's really proud of it. He's ordered, like, 70 copies of this and
Wow.
shares it because, he really his World War II experience was really, it shaped his life, and he wants people to know about his experience. And there's a few photos scattered throughout it, but it's mostly his writing that was transcribed by a friend of his, and then we were able to produce the book, and that's just an example. So we do it.
Yeah.
Um, the whole concept of storytelling, it means a lot to me, and I know it does you too, and I'll turn it back over to you to talk about this.
Yeah, it's really, really fun, especially when you have a project in mind. And it could be any project, but coming at it from a point of how can I best tell the story versus some other angle is I feel like the always the best approach.
Mhm,
Um, so sometimes people get stuck of like, oh, what book should I do, or how should I put this together, and then they kind of just default to maybe a yearbook or maybe some theme like vacation or something like that. But it can be really cool to just think of a story instead of like, is there a memorable story about like this World War II story, right? Or like how I grew up, or something like that, that you can do instead, and then pick bits and pieces of um, and put together. And there's several ways that you can put writing into storytelling. Obviously, it's the main ingredient, but storytelling is a lot more than just writing. It's also the pictures, it's also the feeling, it's the colors, the theme, this like all of it, right? Is the storytelling, the project itself, and it could be in any form or any media. Um, and obviously, how you are going to tell the story affects how you put the writing in. So, if it's a video, I always say, well, let's put subtitles, let's put captions, let's put examples in so that it becomes more alive. If you're doing something like that. um, If it's a photo book, like Molly said, you could put, a picture of the writing, and then you can also have the transcription because not everybody might be able to see it. Like there's so many ways that you can do it, but it's really cool when you can make it visual and um, legible at the same time, because sometimes those are not the same thing. I mean, I just had the other day, we a colleague of mine and we were working on a project with letters from, I think it was like early 1600s, and I could barely make out a word. Like I could see, obviously it's a letter, but I can't make out what this says at all. But
Mhm.
then when she helped with the transcription. She has better eyes than I do, and so when I got the transcription back, I was like, oh, that's what that says. That would have been incredibly hard to read for anybody uh, with sort of average skills of reading old letters, because that not only was there like Latin in there, but there, it was old Swedish and this and that. It was just very difficult. So you kind of have to sometimes explain so that everybody can enjoy it. But yeah, and we have some examples of things that you can also do. So obviously the sky's the limit. Use your imagination. I have an example here where I actually asked my daughter to write a blog post for my photo blog about storytelling and what family history has sort of meant to her, because obviously I'm a fan of ancestry and all of those sites, and I go in and I research and I have a lot of fun with my own family history, and I tell her all the discoveries, and all of that, and we talked about that quite extensively when she was younger, especially, and I every now and then would tell her a story, as a bedtime story rather than just a regular book, and she really enjoyed that, and so I asked her about the experience, and she wrote this blog post that I posted on my blog, and I just thought it was so cute because some of her takeaways were not what I had expected, but they were really, really deep. So she says, "Oh, I know who I am now," which is something that I just think is cool. And research shows that kids who are exposed to family history, like they really have a better sense of self, better confidence, all of that. And so I definitely wanted to share that with her. Um, so
I
yeah,
was I
it,
was really struck by this, when
it's
I
very nice, isn't it?
opened it up and I'm like, "Wow."
Uh-huh. Yeah, I love that she says, like, sometimes there are people at school who are not nice, but if you remember that you were nice, then you don't have that problem. I mean, that's something that I didn't think of at all, but that she came up with. And this was a few years ago, so this was when she was younger. She's a teenager now, but still, I just thought it was so interesting to hear her point of view.
Mhm.
And here she says, "Fun photos help you remember." Um, for our family, and we are overseas and we travel a lot back and forth, you'd never forget each other. I like remembering the places I've been. Yeah, look at what she says in the middle there. Go back.
Oh, I did, yeah.
Did you see that? I can't stick digital photos to my wall. I think that's a very astute observation
Mhm.
from a child, right? Because, obviously she has her phone and all of that now, but
Mhm.
when she was younger, I used to print out photos so she could stick them on her wall and make projects with them. And I think that stuck for her. Um,
Mhm. That's
yeah. I
awesome.
just I just think that's so cool. And then yeah, see, it helps you to be proud. Um,
That
yeah,
one chokes me up,
I know. Yeah. 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 Just knowing yeah. I wouldn't have known all of this if mommy didn't tell me about it. That's why you have to tell your kids. I just think that's so poignant. And, she was only, I can't remember, she was in sixth grade, I think. But yeah, when she wrote this. But yeah, it was just so fun to hear that had an impact. And
Mhm.
so, thinking about sharing it with kids in your life, I think is really important.
Mhm.
And whether you're showing them letters and reading those or photo books or whatever, I just think the point is to share it. And that's why we want to create those projects. That's
Mhm.
why we don't want to get stuck in just the organizing. We want to make sure that we actually take action and do something with the photos. Yeah.
So true.
Mm. Yeah, and this one is fun. So I think maybe a lot of genealogists are going to scold me a little bit for saying this, but it's okay to write some fiction based on family stories. And I didn't have an example of a book or anything like that, but this is a screenshot from one of my courses called Searching Sweden, which was a Swedish genealogy course that I hosted online for a few years, and it's still available actually. So if somebody wants the link, I can give it. But basically what we had a gentleman who didn't know at first a lot about his family history, and then when he found out, he actually took it upon himself to write a fictional story around around uh, that history. And again, he was a little concerned, saying, well, what if somebody reads this and think it's 100% true? And I said, well, we just have to write a disclaimer, in the beginning, saying, this is what I researched, and here are the documents I'm basing this on, and this is how I imagine the story unfolded. And that's okay. And he actually read this on our final call together. And it was amazing. It was an amazing story. Like, he was a wonderful writer, and yeah, I mean, it could be published as a regular book. It was still loosely based on his family history, but the fact that he could make something creative out of all of that
Mhm.
writing that he had found was so interesting.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a new thought for me to hear. Well, we've, like, already spent 45 minutes together. That time is just flown by. Um, I definitely we've got Caroline here and I'm here. If you have questions, about writing, preserving writing, or anything related to photo preservation, family history, you can drop it in the comments or chat, and we'd be happy to answer that. And while I wait to see if anybody chimes in, I'm going to just share Caroline's information. I did copy all of this into the comments, so you should have the links available to you. I also put in, Caroline, your Searching Sweden website because I thought that was
Oh,
really
yeah, that's right. That's the course. Yeah.
I remember when you came out with that. And so that's Caroline's information. And then you have Pixology's information if you are interested. I also pasted those links in the comments. So, all right, this is Wednesday evening. There's no questions, which is okay. I always feel like people have a lot to kind of think about. So you can always post questions later and, we'll try to answer them for you. Um, I just, really,
I actually have a question for you, Molly, if this
oh, yeah.
okay. I wanted to hear, because I'm just curious at what type of projects you get the most in at Pixology. Like, what are the most popular projects that people are trying to do? Um, I'm
Oh,
I'm gonna guess photo books of some sort, but I could be wrong. So I'm just curious to hear.
we do photo books, and family history books occasionally.
Mm,
But our primary work, is focusing on the photo estates. So people bring us all their bins and boxes and albums, and then we organize and curate it for them, and then scan them and return them in archival boxes.
mhm.
Or uh, sometimes people that aren't wanting to save the pictures, which is interesting. People are always trying to figure
Yeah.
figure out, should I or shouldn't I? And about half of the people actually throw the pictures away, I think, at least the more modern pictures. But anyway, the resulting thing is they either get the archival box, and then the photos are uploaded to forever for the most part. And that's the main part of our work,
Mhm.
and occasionally photo books. It's really, just tackling the big thing.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, the bins and boxes that we get, we can turn it around in 4 to 6 weeks, which is just tremendous for people, to get that back, and it is a big big deal, to be able to save and send that on. So,
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And obviously, you can do it that fast because you guys have done this before. You're pros and you know what needs to happen, right? So if you're a DIYer, don't think it's going to happen in 4 to 6 weeks unless you're hiring Molly or somebody else. um, and that's the thing. It's like, it's so worth it, but you
mhm,
just have to take it a little at a time and
mhm.
be patient with yourself.
Absolutely, and I was talking, Tyler is our technician here, and we were talking the other day about how to help motivate people to
Mhm.
do something. And he's like, he had these 2 by 2 3/4 inch slides, the big
Mhm,
ones,
mhm,
glass ones. He had like 400 of them to scan, and he's like, those are very slow. But I
mhm,
said I'm just gonna do a few a day or a few at a time. And eventually, 3 weeks later, he got them all done. And that was his point, is if you just start tackling a tiny part of
yeah,
it, get started and do something, and maybe that momentum will carry
mhm,
through. So,
yeah. Yeah, it usually does, but
mhm.
it's sometimes can feel a little tough to know where to start, and so that's why it's like, just pick up one thing.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter which one it is, just kinda get
Mhm.
started, and then you'll enjoy it and keep going.
It's true.
Mhm.
Well, my crowd here is very quiet tonight. Well, I hope this was
Okay.
helpful for people, and we always love to know what your thoughts are. And I'm giving you like another little bit of time here. Oh, hey, thank goodness Karen came through for us. Karen, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you, Karen.
We really, I appreciate you on so many levels. And Karen actually helped proofread the book, Caroline, that you wrote
Oh,
the beginning to. So Karen, meet
nice.
Caroline. Thank you again. All right. Well, then I think we will wrap this up for this evening. Caroline, thank you so much for being a guest here and
Of
sharing
course.
your wisdom and experience. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the people who will see this in the future will enjoy it as well. So thank you again. And I will say goodbye to everybody and good night.
Good night, everybody. See you soon.
Bye bye.